Rosalind Palmer, you have my undivided attention. Hello.
Hello, lovely to be
How are
here.
you?
Across the airwaves.
Absolutely. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. I'm looking out onto a snowy paddock with my sheep in Lincolnshire. I've been moaning that we didn't get any snow. Obviously, the gods of weather heard me about 2 days ago, so we've got lots now, but it's lovely. So I'm
Yeah,
good.
I was going to say, it's be careful what you wish for, isn't it?
I know.
I'm currently sitting on the top of a hill in Turin, and it's a gloriously sunny day. And it's so sunny, in fact, that for the first time this year, I drank my coffee out on the terrace this morning. I mean, I
Oh,
didn't last long, I have to be honest, and I did have a big jumper on, but
how nice. We
I
we
know.
actually had a lot of renovations done, and we've got a new terrace. We haven't even been out on it yet.
And it's currently under 6 foot of snow.
I'm waiting.
Lovely. Right, so we're it's lovely to share pleasantries with you, but we're actually here because we want to know about you.
Thank
So,
you.
as you know, my series of conversations is an opportunity for me to talk to coaches who are rocking it. There are so many coaches out there who believe that the coaching industry is saturated and that there's no, there isn't any room for new coaches. And my mission in life is to prove that there absolutely is. And one of the ways that I do that is by talking to coaches who are doing well. And you, Rosalyn Palmer, are doing well. So let's go back to the beginning and tell me, how did Rosalind end up here? So can you give me some of your background?
I'd love to say it was planned, but there we go.
It never is though, is it?
So I grew up a grocer's daughter, humble beginnings in Nottinghamshire, but I was always the smart, studious little girl. I loved writing, so I always wanted to be a journalist. Went off to London, did an English degree. Couldn't get into journalism, or I could, but not on a wage that would allow me to actually eat. Back in the 80s, and fell into the then fledgling PR industry. I literally went for an interview going, I have no idea what PR means, and found myself working in PR for a theatrical company. Of course, great, English degree theatre. And then I ended up finding, I was made redundant quite early in my career, and people said, you need to work at one PR agency and one PR agency only, and you're made. And that was Lynn Frank's, which is what Absolutely Fabulous was based on. So I did. I applied and went there. And, it sounds really glamorous, day 2 on the Orient Express, the Rolling Stones, falling over John Paul Gaultier in the corridor. And of course it was, but it was really hard work. We had to deliver. It was pretty brutal, to be honest. So I really cut my teeth in that hard agency world. And then I went and worked in a publishing agency, in an advertising agency, a marketing agency. So that by kind of 1990, I was pretty steeped in having been at the best places. Got made redundant again in 91 and thought, well, I'll just form my own PR company. I've got nothing to lose. And 9 years and a lot of hard work later, with a £1.3 million turnover, I sold it. And at the age of 40, I thought I was the cat that got the cream, and I'd retired and moved to the Bahamas. My life imploded, of course. The universe had a completely different plan for me. I made the mistake of going, oh, what I'd really like is to learn how to be full of grace. And obviously somebody was listening and they went, well, okay, have we got fun for you? And basically everything I knew, everything I identified with went. So in a really short period of time, my father had a stroke. I had breast cancer. My mother got terminal pancreatic cancer. My ex went through pretty much all of our life savings. We moved to an island in the Bahamas and our property was destroyed by a hurricane. So basically, from being the big I am and leaving, with this massive house in London and front page of Marketing Week, I sort of crawled back several years later, a single unemployed mum. Recovering from cancer just in time to bury my mum. So I think you can say that was pretty devastating. And of course, that's where the metal comes in. That's where I had to dig deep. Now, in the 90s, when I had the PR company, I'd been the go-to agency for all the leading personal development gurus of their time. So I'd worked for Tony Robbins, I'd worked for Edward de Bono, I'd worked for Robert Holden, Brandon Bays. And so I'd trained in all of their modalities. I'd trained in NLP coaching. I'd trained even in hypnotherapy. And so I then went and worked for a training and development company. And then after I hit another glass ceiling, I went through a second divorce and the menopause because the universe wasn't finished with me. I was head of marketing and comms for a charity. And then I really thought, I need to do something else here. I'm in my 50s. I'm looking at internet dating. Life keeps throwing me curveballs. And at that time, synchronicity had it that Marissa Peer was forming a new therapy, rapid transformational therapy. She asked me to be on the inaugural course. I took to it like a duck to water. I became a trainer. And then I found that people who were working with me for therapy were asking for a longer journey. They were like, but you've got all that business experience and that life experience. And I kind of was just coaching without calling it coaching, if you like, adding an hour here, doing an extra session here. So I thought, well, I'll just formalize this. So I updated my NLP coaching creds. And now I offer coaching and therapy. So there you go. Yeah, I couldn't kind of made it up. But I suppose really what I'm saying is I had a lot of transferable skills. I have a lot of life experience. And really, I do have a background in coaching and therapy that really goes back to the 90s. And now I'm also very up to date with where we are today. So I think that combination of being highly trained, very empathetic, but also a good communicator definitely means I am rocking it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes, absolutely. It does. It does. So go back to the therapy that you trained in, rapid transformation therapy. What's that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Marissa Peer, interestingly, I met her at a Tony Robbins course in Maui, Hawaii, as you do, in the early 90s. And I then went to see her as a client because I was having some money blocks. I was really almost self-sabotaging my business at the time. And she was a hypnotherapist, a very leading celebrity, reassuringly expensive hypnotherapist. And I went and saw her and it really did the trick and we remained friends. So what she was very clever at with a 30-year background, which effectively had started in psychotherapy, she'd been a child psychologist, I believe, and then hypnotherapy. She'd added on different modalities. I mean, when I met her, she was training in NLP. So she created a therapy, rapid transformational therapy, which is a hybrid and really fuses the best of clinical hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, NLP, and CBT. So it pretty much does what it says on the tin in so much as it's rapid. You know, you wouldn't work with a rapid transformational therapist for years. It's not a talking therapy. It's really a clinically hypnotherapy based therapy. That's probably the bedrock of it. But it gives us so many other tools in our toolkits that it makes it incredibly effective. And when I became a trainer in her early courses, I'd look across the room and I'd start talking to people because it's pretty intense, the training. And I go, so what do you do for a living? And they'd say, oh, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I'd be like, well, that's really interesting. Why are you here? But I think having those other modalities, those other tools in the toolbox really gave them a lot more scope. So that's what rapid transformational therapy is.
So if I was to come to you as a client, what would I expect to happen? What would I experience?
So it really depends whether you're coming to me as a coaching or a therapy client. And my take on that is you don't probably know.
Yeah.
You just know you're stuck, you're unhappy, you've got some really unwanted behaviors, you don't feel, or maybe you're incredibly successful. I work with like 6-figure achievers, but you feel empty and spent and nothing gives you joy anymore. And you just wonder if you can ever get that mojo back. And so really I would develop what modality I'm going to work with you. And I actually won an award 2 years ago through the Janie Loves Platinum Awards for health provider because I put together the therapy and the coaching. In one session, it will either be therapy or coaching. But I find the combination of the two, and of course this isn't true for everybody. Some people just come for coaching or mentoring. Some people just come for therapy. But for most people, my analogy would be a garden. I want a lovely garden. I keep trying to have a lovely garden and the weeds keep coming back, and I plant seeds and I put a swing in and the whole thing, and a year later it looks terrible. Let's go together with the therapy and work out where the weeds are. Let's go pull the weeds up by the root. Then let's plant for the future and make it lovely. And of course, no two people will have the same deal, but that's pretty much how I work.
No two people would want the same garden either, would they?
No, thank goodness.
So there you go. Beautiful analogy. Fits brilliantly.
Most people, the trouble is, most people just want to feel happy or want to feel fulfilled, but they don't know how to get there. They don't even know what there looks like because they're in such a place, you know, a bit like driving with a windscreen that's cracked. It's like, I know there's a world out there, but I can't quite see it. So I do find that having the both tools really gives me that opportunity to work with them to really find out what's going to be best for them.
Yeah, I can see that. So them, that's really interesting. So tell me, who are they? Who do you work with? Who is your client?
Well, look, here's me wearing my marketing hat. Because obviously, you know, you can take the girl out of marketing and PR, but you can't take the PR out of the girl. And so very early, in fact, right from the training day, I realized I needed to set my stall out and say, you know, I am a therapist for you. And I immediately went to who I was. And I like to call her Burnt Out Barbara. Or Burnt Out Bob, you know. So I will say, you know, do you look like it's all going on? You know, I had an 8-bedroom house in London. I had a nanny. I had a driver. I had a masseuse who used to come to my house once a week. I was a member of Home House and expensive clubs, and then I moved to the Bahamas. You know, I looked like the poster girl for having it all going on, and I would lay awake at night thinking, can I spin another plate? I would only go to sleep if I took a sleeping tablet. You know, and there was some really not great behaviors going on. I was bulimic for a while. You know, I think I was quite depressed, really. So it's really those Burnt Out Barbaras and Bobs is my absolute go-to client, because the minute I work with them, they go, oh my God, you get me.
Yeah,
you get me. And, you know, and I wrote a book, Reset, and I can't tell you how many people go, well, in fact, a woman contacted me recently and she said, I've been reading bits of your book out and my husband asked, did I collaborate with you on it? And were we actually talking about you, you know, her?
Yeah.
Because it is that, there used to be a column in the Telegraph called I Don't Know How She Does It, which turned into a book and turned into a movie. And that used to be me in the 90s, you know, like suddenly the kids would say that they were supposed to take cakes to school the next day, and I'd get some from Sainsbury's and then bash them around and put some flour on them and pretend that I'd made them, because I only remembered at 10 o'clock at night. And so I am speaking to that cohort very, very much, because I do get it and I've trod in their path. But like a GP, I'm trained really to deal with everybody. I mean, the irony was I set my stall out right from the get-go and went, this is who I'm going to deal with. My very first client, a 20-year-old with erectile dysfunction. You know, so it's like, you know, so as you know, the medium isn't always the market. And I've dealt with everybody from, I do get quite a lot of self-harming anorexic teenagers and early kind of 20s, because often they are the children of those very, very high achievers. And it's very rare that they'll go, oh, my own child needs to see you, but they'll go, oh, a friend of ours daughter or son, you know, they're about to drop out of uni, or they're self-harming, or they're really bad anorexic, you know, can we deal with them? So they're probably my two main cohorts, but I've had everything from pensioners to, you know.
Absolutely. And this goes back to the point that your ideal client, your target audience, if you will, that's not the only people you can sell to. No. You know, you can sell your coaching to anybody who wants to buy it. It's where you focus your marketing energy. And clearly you wrote your book for Burnt Out Barbara or Bob.
I did. And I think what that speaks to, and this is a, you're really already on that page, is here's me, I'm talking about something, but I'm talking about it with authenticity. So even if it's somebody who really doesn't relate to that world, that's not the world they live in, they've been maybe in a service industry for 30 years or whatever.
Well, they can sympathise but not empathise.
Exactly. And they feel reassured because they get the congruency, they get the authenticity, they get, and what I've had to do, and and you're talking about rocking it, I had to be very vulnerable in the last few years. And I found it harder than I could ever have imagined. Because when I wrote the book 3 years ago, I literally spent the weekend before it was published in my pajamas crying and thinking, do we think we could cancel the launch on Tuesday? Because in PR, I was the power behind the throne. I was like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, cranking the thing, while everybody else was out in front of the curtain. Literally, I was in showbiz PR. I was in the wings. Suddenly, I'm the one who's having to go out there, and not just that, but actually be kind of judged, if you like, for who I am and for what I say and for what I've done. And I found that very, very difficult. I have to say, I write about it a lot. It's all very good reading Brené Brown and Daring Greatly. But when you're there, you're like, oh, this is very uncomfortable. But I did push on through it. I absolutely did. And it has paid dividends.
I had a book published last year, and about this time last year, and in my head, the process had only ever gone to the point at which it was a book. Yes. It never actually, until the moment it happened, it never occurred to me that there would be more to it than that, and that once it was out there, people would actually read it.
Exactly.
And then when they read it and you have a conversation with them, it feels like they're walking around inside your head. I just didn't anticipate that, quite how intimate the relationship is between somebody who's written something and somebody who's read it.
Did you find that really uncomfortable?
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't it?
Yes. I felt naked almost. It was the oddest thing.
I know, me too. So that's been an interesting journey because, when I trained later this year, that's 6 years ago, I was, well, I can do this because I've got this background in PR and marketing. And then it was like, well, you need to talk about yourself more, so I can do this. And then suddenly when you're there, it's like, oh, this feels really unfamiliar and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So yes, it's taken some time to really be at one with that, but I am at one with that now.
And I think for a coach, the massive benefit in having a book is how many more of your target audience and beyond that you can actually speak to without having to cut yourself into even smaller pieces.
Oh, absolutely. And I have a newspaper column. Okay, it's a local newspaper, but I write for lots of online publications. I write regularly for Hayes now. I mean, Hayes on LinkedIn, they've got millions of followers. I've just launched a podcast series because I'm constantly thinking, right, I need to take the next step. And the podcast series, I'm okay when it's just recorded, but when it's video, I'm suddenly, again, I wrote a blog only this week going, by the way, I have a YouTube channel and there are some videos on it. I just thought I'd mention it, kind of duck back behind the covers. But of course, it's all getting used to those steps. And what I love is people then respond to that and go, but you look so confident. I can't believe you're feeling like that.
You can't believe you're behind.
I'm like, I'm actually an extroverted introvert. It might not appear it, but guess what? I did an English degree. That means you spend 3 years reading books in dark rooms. This is not the degree of a complete extrovert.
That's really funny. So what happens next for Rosalyn Palmer? Where does this go?
Well, I'm ever evolving. What I love about having a marketing background is I never see anything as true failure. I see it as testing, and then you get a result and then you maybe amend. So I've got the podcast now. I've just launched my second online course, which I need to publicize. And I'm developing another online course, and I've got another one in the bag. So for me, obviously having income streams that I don't have to always do a session for is a natural extension of what I do. And I feel I have the credibility and track record, for people to really buy into that. So more online. I'm going to create a community. I've not done that before. So community, probably maybe a subscription model. And the podcast is continuing, the writing. But on a personal level, I only moved in with my partner last year. We went into the great lockdown experiment to see if we could live together. And I'm happy to report we can, and we do. So I only moved in November, and he's retired. And so me having a really great work-life balance has always been important, particularly since the cancer, which was 16 years ago. But it's even more important. I've got sheep, I've got turkeys, I've got chickens. And I absolutely, by the end of this year, I'm going to start that novel. So I know I can write, but here's an absolutely new ball game for me. I'm going to write fiction, and I'm going to write a book. And I already have it all plotted out, and the storyline and the characters, as a good marketeer and planner would have. And that's going to be my personal challenge. So, and I'm also mentoring more. So high level mentoring, because again, that's what probably gives me the buzz.
What does that mean? What do you mean by high level mentoring?
Oh, I can't hear you.
This is my internet going funny, isn't it? Can you not hear me now?
We could do this through interpretive dance, because I can no longer hear you.
Okay. I don't know why you can't hear me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Shall I carry on talking?
Yeah.
Because I cannot hear you.
In the chat.
Yes, you can send me a message. So if people are still watching, I know I'll ask myself a question. So let me ask myself a question. My question would be, a lot of people, I've got bookcases full of books. I've been on so many courses, and yet you wake up and you're having a bad day. How do you get through that bad day? You have a hand, you have 5 fingers. My core philosophy is the 5 Fs, although technically one is a thumb. So you have 5 fingers, 5 Fs. This is really my core philosophy in life, and to get you through and to keep yourself balanced, busy and balanced, rather than busy and burnt out like Barbara and Bob. And so the first F is faith, then fitness, then friends, then family and finance. So you need faith. It doesn't have to be a religion, but faith in nature, faith in yourself, faith in taking a walk, faith in patting the dog on the head, something beyond you, something to ground you. You need fitness, obviously mind and body. And I've had to learn the hard way about what, when you're out of kilter on both of those, feels like. So it's really important. I do Pilates, I eat well, I think well, or try to. Family, again, it might not be your actual family, it's really your tribe. Who do you support you, raises your game? Again, friends, the 5 people, you're the sum total of your closest friends. So again, who are you surrounding yourself with? Who's elevating you? Who's challenging you? And then finance, because we need money, and money is an energy. And as former head of marketing for a charity, if people didn't pay it forward, other people wouldn't get helped. So every day I think to myself, have I checked in with those 5 Fs? I don't know if I can hear you. No, I still can't hear you.
Okay. Well, in that case, we'll say goodbye.
So it's been brilliant. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you might not have any sound, but you are up a hill in Turin or wherever it is, somewhere beautiful in Italy. So I am a tad jealous. So thank you very much for having me.
Bye, Rosalyn.
Bye.